There's a moment at the start of every day when heaven waits for your choice. It's the moment between sleep and purpose. That pause before the rush, that breath before the battle. Every day, you decide who's in control. Will it be you, your fears, your calendar, your emotions? Or will it be God? Putting God first is more than a spiritual phrase. It's a lifestyle. It's not about perfection, it's about position. The order of your priorities determines the outcome of your day. If God isn't first, everything else falls out of alignment. But when you begin your morning by inviting Him into the center, you're saying, God, before I touch anything, before I plan anything, before I speak to anyone, you are my first thought and my first focus. When you start with God, you build on solid ground. Life will always test your foundation through loss, rejection, unexpected detours. But what's built on God stands. You can't build your peace on people because people change. You can't build your joy on circumstances because they shift. You can't build your stability on emotions because they fluctuate. But when you build on God, you build on rock. And no matter how heavy the storm, that foundation holds firm. Putting God first isn't just protection from chaos, it's preparation for clarity. So many people are rushing through life with no direction because they're building without a blueprint. They're trying to manage what they never surrendered. You can plan all you want, but if God isn't in it, it won't last. The Bible says, unless the Lord builds the house, they that labor in vain. You can be busy but not productive. You can be active but not effective. Productivity without purpose leads to burnout, but when you put God first, even the small things gain meaning. Putting God first transforms your perspective. You begin to see the day not as something to survive, but as an opportunity to serve. When your focus is divine, your reactions become spiritual. You stop letting little things throw you off because your eyes are fixed on something higher. Traffic can't steal your peace. Delays can't shake your joy, because when God is first, you live from peace instead of chasing it. Some people start their day with worry, with work, or with words from the world. But when you start your day with God, He sets the rhythm of your soul. He aligns your thoughts, orders your emotions, and prepares your heart. Prayer is not a ritual, it's a reset. It's not an obligation, it's oxygen. It's how you breathe through the pressures of life. Every morning you spend with God is a spiritual deposit that pays peace dividends all day long. Putting God first isn't about doing more, it's about trusting more. It's a daily surrender that says, God, I don't know what's coming, but I know who's already there. You don't have to know the plan when you know the planner. You don't have to understand the season when you trust the source. Every day you choose to honor God before anything else, you are building your life on the foundation that never cracks. Because when God is first, the rest finds order. When He's first, everything else falls into its rightful place. You'll stop forcing outcomes and start flowing in peace. The day may still have battles, but you'll face them from victory, not for victory. Because the God you put first has already gone before you. We live in a world that celebrates self-made strength. Do it yourself, grind harder, trust nobody. But that's a dangerous gospel. It teaches you to rely on your limited power instead of God's unlimited grace. You can't be your own savior and expect divine outcomes. The moment you put yourself first, you push God to the side. And the moment you push Him aside, you step out of alignment with destiny. Self-dependence may feel strong, but it's deceptive strength. The kind that fades when life hits hard. You can't hold up what only heaven can carry. You can't control what only God can command. Every time you try to do it all on your own, you're carrying burdens that were never assigned to your shoulders. That's why anxiety creeps in. That's why exhaustion takes over. You're doing God's job and wondering why you're breaking down. God never called you to be your own source. He called you to stay connected to Him, the source of all strength. The world will tell you that weakness is failure, but in God's economy, weakness is opportunity. It's the doorway to power. When you say, God, I can't, heaven responds, that's where I begin. When you admit your limits, you make room for His limitless ability. When you depend on God, you stop fighting against the current and start flowing with His will. The current of grace carries farther than the effort of striving. Every battle in your life will test your dependence. You'll be tempted to take control, to fix it, to prove it, to rush it. But when you truly trust God, you'll learn to wait without worrying. You'll move without panicking. You'll stand without fear. Dependence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing everything through Him. It means inviting God into the grind, not trying to grind without Him. There's a peace that comes when you stop pretending you're in charge. When you truly put God first, you stop competing with Him for control. You stop forcing what He's still forming. The moment you release control, the pressure breaks, the burden lifts. That's why Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Rest isn't found in doing less. It's found in trusting more. When you live in self-dependence, you'll always feel drained. But when you live in God dependence, you'll feel sustained. Even in chaos, you'll have calm. Even in pain, you'll have peace. You'll learn that success isn't about how much you can carry. It's about how much you can surrender. Because the more you depend on God, the lighter the load becomes. The danger of self-dependence is that it blinds you to your need for grace. But the beauty of surrender is that it opens the door to divine strength. When you put God first, you exchange pressure for purpose. You stop striving for perfection and start walking in peace. Because your strength was never meant to be enough. His always was. There's a reason some people can go through hell and still come out with their hands lifted. It's not because they're stronger. It's because they know the source of strength. They've learned the secret that the world can't teach. Daily strength comes from daily surrender. When you put God first every morning, you tap into a strength that doesn't run out when your energy does. You can't expect to fight spiritual battles on an empty spiritual tank. Prayer isn't a performance, it's your power supply. When you start your day with God, you are plugging into heaven's power grid. It's not about how loud you pray. It's about how consistently you connect. Every time you open your heart, God downloads peace, direction, and clarity. That's why some people seem unshakable. It's not that life doesn't hit them. It's that they've learned to recharge before the fight begins. When you stay connected, what drains others only deepens you. The problem is we often treat God like a backup generator. We only plug in when the lights go out. But the real secret to strength is to stay plugged in all the time. Don't wait for the crisis to call Him. Don't wait for the pain to pray. Make God your first thought, not your last option. When you live in constant connection, you'll find power even in your lowest moments. Daily strength isn't about avoiding weakness. It's about embracing the source. It's waking up every morning saying, "God, I don't know what today holds, but I know who holds me." That kind of dependence breeds peace. It keeps you from being thrown off by things you can't control. When God is first, your emotions stop running the show, and your faith starts leading the way. Sometimes you'll wake up feeling heavy. The day hasn't even started, and the weight is already there. But that's the moment to go to your source. You don't have to carry what you can cast. You don't have to fake strength when God offers real strength. He doesn't just refill you, He renews you. Every morning, He offers new mercies, not recycled ones. Fresh grace for fresh battles. When you live connected to God, you start to respond differently to pressure. What used to break you now builds you. What used to drain you now drives you. You realize that God's strength doesn't just show up in your victories. It shows up in your valleys. He becomes your stability in chaos, your calm in the storm, and your endurance in exhaustion. The secret to daily strength isn't found in the gym, the schedule, or the coffee cup. It's found in the quiet place. It's found in that sacred moment where you whisper, "God, I need you today." And when you make that your daily rhythm, strength becomes not something you fight for, but something you flow in. Because when you put God first, He becomes your energy, your anchor, and your endless supply. You planned it perfectly. You had the vision, the timeline, the expectation. And then life hit you with something you didn't see coming. That's when putting God first becomes more than a statement, it becomes survival. Because life will interrupt you. Life will knock the air out of your lungs and flip your plans upside down. But when you've built your foundation on God, interruptions don't destroy you, they develop you. When life changes without your permission, you can either panic or pivot. People who put God first learn how to pivot. They don't fall apart, they fall on their knees. They understand that disappointment is often divine direction in disguise. What feels like a setback may be God's setup. You thought the plan was falling apart, but really, it was falling into place according to His purpose. God has a way of using interruptions to reveal what's really inside of you. Sometimes He allows your plans to fail so your faith can grow. Because if everything went the way you wanted, you'd never learn to trust Him beyond your understanding. When you put God first, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What are you teaching me through this?" That's spiritual maturity, the ability to look at pain and still see purpose. Interruptions are not always obstacles. Sometimes they are invitations. God might be interrupting your comfort to introduce your calling. You were comfortable where you were, but God knew there was more in you. So he disrupted the routine to reveal your potential. The promotion didn't come, the relationship didn't work, the plan fell apart. Not because God forgot you, but because he was forming something deeper in you. When you live with God at the center, you begin to see that nothing is wasted. Even the detours are divine. Even the delays have direction. God wastes no pain, no tear, no closed door. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. What you thought was punishment was preparation. When God is first, you start to trust that even the interruptions have intention. Putting God first doesn't mean your plans won't be interrupted. It means you'll know how to respond when they are. You won't lose peace every time something shifts. You'll understand that God's reroutes always lead to something greater. Sometimes you don't get what you wanted because God has something you didn't know you needed. And when your heart stays aligned with him, every closed door becomes a clue, not a curse. So when life interrupts your plans, remember this: God's not surprised. He was already there before it happened. What shocked you was scheduled by him. And if he allowed the interruption, he's already written the instruction that follows it. When you put God first, interruptions don't derail your destiny, they direct it. Everybody can praise God when the sun is shining. Everybody can shout hallelujah when the bills are paid, the doors are open, and life feels easy. But putting God first is truly proven when the storm starts raging, when the wind blows against you, when the waves rise higher than your strength, when fear tries to whisper louder than faith. That's where the truth of your foundation shows. You can't fake faith in the flood. What you built in private will carry you in public. Putting God first means that even when you don't see the shore, you trust the one who controls the sea. Storms have a way of revealing priorities. When the pressure hits, you'll see what's truly first in your heart. Some people run to panic, others run to prayer. Some turn to people, others turn to peace. The storm exposes who's steering your ship. If God isn't first, fear will take over. But if he is first, faith will rise like an anchor. The winds may be strong, but your soul will stand still because you know the same God who called you out is still carrying you through. Sometimes God doesn't calm the storm because he's using the storm to calm you. He's not always trying to fix the situation. He's fixing your focus. You wanted comfort, but God wanted character. You prayed for escape, but God wanted endurance. When you put him first, you stop asking, "When will it end?" and start saying, "What are you shaping in me while it's happening?" Because storms don't just break you, they build you when you trust God in the middle of them. Putting God first in the storm teaches you that peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of God. It's the awareness that even when everything shakes, he remains steady. He's still the God who speaks, "Peace, be still." Not just to the waves around you, but to the war inside you. You learn that worship is stronger than worry. When you lift your hands in the wind, heaven moves on your behalf. It's easy to praise after the storm, but powerful people praise in it. They declare God's goodness even while soaking wet with tears. They trust his plan even when they don't like his process. That's what it means to put him first. It's saying, "God, I still trust you in the thunder. I still believe you in the rain. I still worship you when I don't understand." Faith is not built in comfort, it's born in chaos. When you put God first, storms no longer intimidate you, they inform you. You start to recognize that every storm carries revelation. God shows you sides of himself that you can't see in calm weather. You see his power when you have no control. You see his faithfulness when everything else fails. You realize that storms aren't meant to destroy you, they're designed to deepen you. The wind may blow, but it's blowing you into greater faith. So the next time you find yourself in a storm, stop looking at what's breaking and start looking at who's holding you. You might not understand why, but you can always trust the ooh. When God is first, storms don't have the final say. The Savior does. And when the storm passes, you'll come out stronger, wiser, and more anchored than ever before. God will always test what you put first, not because he needs proof, but because he wants to show you where your heart truly stands. The test of priorities isn't about punishment, it's about positioning. God wants to see if he's still the center or if something else has taken his place. Sometimes he will shake what's secondary to expose what's sacred. He'll let you lose certain things not to hurt you, but to realign you. Because when you drift from putting God first, life starts falling out of rhythm. The greatest test isn't when you have nothing. It's when you have something. When you start succeeding, when prayers are answered, when doors open, will God still be your first love? Or will the blessing become your new idol? Many people fail this test quietly. They don't reject God, they just replace him with comfort, career, or control. But God's tests are never about loss, they're about loyalty. He's asking, can I still trust you with favor and not lose you to fame? Putting God first means he stays in the center even when life shifts around you. It means you don't love him for what he gives, but for who he is. It's easy to shout when everything's working, but can you still shout when nothing is? Can you still worship when prayers go unanswered? Can you still trust when the outcome hurts? The test of priorities reveals whether your faith is built on miracles or on mastery, whether you love the gifts or the giver. When you put God first, he will bless you with things that test your focus. He'll give you influence to see if you'll still listen. He'll give you increase to see if you'll still serve. He'll open doors to see if you'll still depend on him or start depending on yourself. The test isn't about what you gain, it's about what you guard. Will you protect your devotion when success starts knocking? Sometimes God removes what you love most just to see if you'll still love him. That's a hard truth, but he doesn't do it to destroy you. He does it to deepen you. He wants you to reach a place where you can say, God, even if I lose it all, you're still enough. That's where real faith lives. That's where worship becomes pure. That's where maturity is born, in the fire of tested priorities. The enemy loves to distract you with good things that pull you from the God thing. That's why you must constantly check your heart. Who's first today? Is it God or the grind? Is it the promise or the provider? Is it the miracle or the master? Because whatever sits first in your heart determines the direction of your life. You can't say God is first and let worry lead your decisions. You can't say he's first and still trust fear more than faith. Every test of priority is an opportunity to reestablish order. When God strips things away, it's not rejection, it's refinement. He's reminding you that what you lost was never your foundation. He is. When you pass that test, he promotes you. Every time you choose him over convenience, you graduate in faith. And when you keep God first through the tests, you discover that losing things never makes you less. It just makes you more like him. Every day you are worshiping something. The question is what? When fear consumes your mind, that's a form of worship. When worry controls your thoughts, that's a form of surrender, just to the wrong thing. You can't put God first and let worry run your life at the same time. Worry says, it's up to me. Worship says, it's in God's hands. When you learn to choose worship over worry, you shift from stress to surrender. You shift from panic to peace. Worry is heavy because it makes you carry what God never told you to. It drains your energy, clouds your vision, and steals your joy. It's like trying to run a race while holding a suitcase full of fear. But worship releases what worry restricts. It's the act of opening your hands and saying, God, I trust you with what I can't control. The moment you lift your hands in worship, heaven lifts the weight off your heart. Putting God first means training your spirit to praise before the problem is solved. Anybody can worship when it's easy, but real faith worships in uncertainty. Real faith lifts its hands when tears fall. Real faith sings through sorrow. When you choose worship over worry, you invite the supernatural into your situation. God inhabits the praises of his people, not the panic of his people. So if you want him close, turn your worry into worship. Sometimes you have to worship with no music, no choir, no crowd, no encouragement. Just you and God in the quiet of your struggle. That's where true worship is born. It's in the lonely nights, the sleepless tears, the unspoken fears. Worship isn't a performance, it's a posture. It says, God, I still believe you're good, even when life isn't. And that simple decision to worship shifts the atmosphere of your soul. Worry feeds anxiety, worship feeds peace. Worry magnifies problems, worship magnifies God. The more you worry, the smaller your faith feels. But the more you worship, the smaller your problems look. Because worship changes perspective. It doesn't always change what's around you, but it changes what's within you. And that's where victory starts. The moment you start to worship, you remind your soul who's in charge. You remind your emotions that they don't get to dictate your faith. You remind your mind that peace is a choice, not a condition. When God is first, you don't have to have all the answers, you just need to stay in alignment with the answer himself. And that alignment turns fear into faith every single time. So every time worry shows up, answer it with worship. Lift your hands and let God know he still has first place in your heart. Because when you put worship before worry, you don't just survive your battles, you sing through them. And the sound of your faith will silence the voice of your fear. The battle for your day starts before you even open your eyes. The enemy knows if he can distract you early, he can derail you all day. That's why your first moments matter. The first voice you listen to sets the tone. The first thought you believe sets the direction. The first focus you choose sets the atmosphere. If you start your day in chaos, your mind will follow chaos. But if you start your day with God, your soul will follow peace. The morning is not just a routine, it's a battlefield. You wake up to noise, notifications, pressure, and expectations. But before you step into the world, you've got to step into his presence. You have to anchor your heart before the world can pull it in different directions. Because whatever captures your attention first captures your focus next. Putting God first in the morning is how you win the day before it begins. When you wake up and declare, "This is the day the Lord has made, I will rejoice and be glad in it," you are making a prophetic choice. You're telling your soul how to feel before your circumstances tell it otherwise. You're saying, "I may not know what's coming, but I know who's in control." That declaration isn't denial, it's direction. You're setting your heart toward faith before fear gets a chance to speak. Too many people give their first moments to their phone instead of their Father. They scroll before they pray, worry before they worship, plan before they pause. But your peace will always follow your priority. The way you start determines the way you stand. You can't let the world program your mind and expect heaven to lead your day. You have to choose his voice over the noise. When you put God first in the morning, your perspective changes. You begin to recognize his presence in simple moments. You'll find gratitude instead of grumbling, peace instead of panic, patience instead of pressure. The enemy's greatest weapon is distraction, but your greatest defense is devotion. The moment you give God your attention, you take authority over your atmosphere. Some mornings you won't feel spiritual. You'll feel tired, stressed, maybe even frustrated. But putting God first isn't about feeling, it's about faith. It's saying, "God, even when I don't feel strong, I know you are." That's what changes everything. You don't wait to feel ready, you worship your way into readiness. That's how you train your spirit for consistency. Not by emotion, but by decision. Every morning is a new opportunity to place God back where he belongs, at the center. When you win the morning, you win the day. When you put him first, your focus sharpens, your peace multiplies, and your strength renews. Because the battle for the day is won by the one who starts it with God. It's easy to put God first when you're desperate. When the bills are due, when your heart is broken, when your back is against the wall, you'll pray like never before. But can you still put him first when everything is working? When the money starts flowing, when the spotlight shines, when the opportunities keep coming, that's when success becomes the real test. Because success can whisper louder than struggle. It can tell you that you've got this now, that you don't need to depend like before, that you've arrived. But the truth is, success without surrender becomes the seed of spiritual decline. Blessings can turn into distractions if you forget the blesser. God never gives you increase to replace intimacy. He blesses you to see if you can handle both the pressure and the prosperity. The same God who was enough when you had nothing must still be your focus when you have everything. Don't let abundance silence your adoration, because success can become a slow drift, not a rebellion, but a redirection of your heart away from the source who gave it all. When life starts rising, pride starts whispering. You start saying things like, "Look at what I built, look at what I did." But God's blessings are not proof of your power, they are evidence of his grace. The danger of success is that it makes you forget the prayers that got you there. You stop praying as passionately, worshiping as deeply, and listening as carefully. But if the same prayer that birthed your blessing isn't sustained, the blessing will become your burden. Putting God first means remembering where you came from and who brought you there. Every level of elevation should increase your humility. The higher you go, the lower you bow. The more he gives, the more grateful you become. Because when gratitude leaves, pride takes over, and pride always precedes the fall. Success doesn't have to destroy you, but it will if it disconnects you. God doesn't mind blessing you. He just doesn't want the blessing to replace him. He wants to see if he can trust you with favor without losing your focus. Can you handle visibility and still stay in humility? Can you handle increase and still stay in intimacy? Can you have success and still seek his face? That's the real test of spiritual maturity. To stay grounded when God grows you. When you put God first, your success stays submitted. You begin to see your platform as a pulpit, your promotion as purpose, your influence as an instrument. You stop chasing validation from people because you're anchored in the approval of God. That's how you keep your soul healthy while your life expands. You remind yourself daily, God, I have nothing that didn't come from you. So if God elevates you, stay humble. If he blesses you, stay grateful. If he promotes you, stay prayerful. Because the greatest trap in success is forgetting the one who made it possible. Keep God first, even when you're winning, especially when you're winning, and you'll find that success no longer defines you, it simply amplifies him. Life is built on decisions. Every yes and every no shapes your direction. But too often, we make decisions and then ask God to bless them, instead of seeking his counsel first. We want his approval without his input. We rush into choices, chase opportunities, and enter relationships without pausing to ask, God, is this you? Putting God first means you don't move until he says move. It means you seek his voice before you sign, before you say yes, before you step forward. When you make decisions without God, you risk building on assumptions instead of instructions. You start walking down roads that look right but lead wrong. Proverbs says, there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is destruction. When you depend on your own understanding, you walk in circles. But when you invite God into your decisions, he orders your steps. He gives peace where he approves and unease where he warns. Peace isn't just a feeling, it's a divine compass. God is not just interested in your big decisions. He cares about the small ones too. The ones you think don't matter what you say, who you connect with, where you spend your time. Every small decision adds up to destiny. When you put him first, you learn to ask, God, does this align with who you called me to be? That kind of daily awareness keeps you from walking into traps disguised as opportunities. Some of us are frustrated not because God didn't bless our plans, but because we never asked if they were his. We wanted his favor, but not his direction. We prayed for success, but ignored his timing. When you put God first, you stop chasing every open door, because not every open door is divine. Some doors are distractions dressed as destiny. Discernment comes from dependence. The more you trust God with your decisions, the less you'll depend on human validation. You'll stop making choices to please people and start making them to honor God. You'll stop saying yes out of fear and start saying no out of faith. You'll begin to measure opportunities not by how good they look, but by how much peace they carry. When God is first, peace becomes your yes, and confusion becomes your no. Putting God first in your decisions doesn't make life easier, but it makes it wiser. You won't always understand his direction, but you'll trust it. Sometimes he'll close a door to protect you. Sometimes he'll delay a promise to prepare you. When you make decisions through prayer, you learn that no is not rejection, it's redirection, and every redirection is divine protection. So before you decide, pause. Before you act, pray. Before you plan, ask. Make God your first counsel, not your last confirmation. When you seek him first, you'll find that the right choices bring peace, not pressure. Because every decision surrendered to God carries his fingerprint, and where his fingerprint is, there's always favor. Putting God first isn't a one-time revelation, it's a daily discipline. It's something you train your spirit to do again and again until it becomes second nature. Discipline means showing up even when you don't feel it. It's waking up to pray even when you're tired. It's trusting when you don't understand. Discipline doesn't always feel spiritual, but it produces spiritual strength. Faith without consistency is just a feeling, but faith with discipline becomes a lifestyle that heaven can trust. Dependence is the antidote to pride. The moment you start thinking you've got it all together, God will remind you that you're still dependent on his grace. He'll let certain things slip through your control just to draw you back to him. Because true strength isn't in independence, it's in reliance. It's not in doing everything yourself, it's in admitting that you can't do anything without him. The more you depend on God, the more stable you become in a shaking world. Discipline keeps you steady when emotions fluctuate. Feelings come and go, but habits hold you. That's why prayer, devotion, and obedience matter even when they don't feel powerful. Every day you choose to depend on God, you are building spiritual muscle. You're training your heart to respond with faith instead of fear. You're building reflexes of trust. So when life hits hard, your default reaction isn't panic, it's prayer. Dependence on God doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It means you've learned that self-reliance is overrated. You've learned that what you can't control is still covered by grace. You've learned that peace doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing Him. People may see your calm and call it strength, but what they don't see is the discipline behind it, the quiet mornings, the whispered prayers, the daily surrender that fuels your confidence. When you truly depend on God, your patience grows. You stop rushing what He's still writing. You stop complaining about what's not happening and start trusting that He's doing more behind the scenes than you can see. Dependence teaches you that delays are not denials. They're divine intervals for preparation. You learn to rest instead of react, to wait instead of worry. The discipline of dependence is built through repetition. Every time you face something beyond your control, you have a choice: lean on your strength or lean on His. Every act of surrender strengthens the habit. Eventually, you'll find that depending on God isn't a struggle anymore, it's a reflex. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. And that's the goal, to live in such rhythm with God that dependence isn't difficult, it's natural. When you make Him your daily priority, He becomes your peace, your stability, your source. You'll stop saying, "I've got this," and start saying, "God's got me." That's not weakness. That's wisdom wrapped in worship. We often look for God in the big moments, the miracles, the breakthroughs, the victories. But the truth is, He's just as present in the small things. The ordinary moments, the quiet mornings, the unnoticed details, that's where His fingerprints hide. Putting God first means you stop treating Him like a part-time participant and start recognizing Him as a full-time presence. He's not just the God of the supernatural. He's the God of the subtle. When you put God in the small things, you start to see how He weaves details together that you once ignored. The timing of a call, the delay that saved you from danger, the opportunity that seemed random but was divinely aligned. When you acknowledge Him in the little, you become more aware of His hand in the big. Gratitude opens your eyes to God's hidden movements. Sometimes we miss His presence because we're looking for fireworks instead of faithfulness. We want dramatic signs, but God often shows up in whispers. He's in the way a stranger smiles at you when you needed encouragement. He's in the idea that came to your heart at just the right time. He's in the small victories that no one else sees. Putting God first means slowing down enough to notice the divine in the details. When you honor God in the small things, you build a habit of holiness. You begin to pray before meetings, thank Him for meals, and consult Him about your thoughts. That's not over-spiritualizing, that's prioritizing. It means your relationship with God isn't event-based, it's lifestyle-based. You stop compartmentalizing faith into Sundays and start living it on Mondays. The enemy wants you to believe that small things don't matter. But the small things build the big picture. The little habits form your future. The small decisions determine your destiny. If you can't put God first in the little, you won't be able to trust Him with the large. He watches how you handle the daily moments before He releases the major miracles. Putting God first in the small things keeps your heart humble. It reminds you that everything you have is grace, not achievement. It keeps your perspective grounded. It protects you from pride. Because when you see God in the small, you never take the big for granted. You begin to live with continuous gratitude instead of conditional gratitude. So start your day with simple surrender. A small prayer, a moment of gratitude, a whisper of faith. That's how you invite God into your normal. And when He's present in your normal, the normal becomes supernatural. Because the God who rules the heavens is still faithful in the details. Focus is the battleground of faith. Every day, something or someone is fighting to distract you from God. Worry fights for it. Fear fights for it. The news, social media, opinions, pressure, all of them compete for your attention. Because what captures your focus controls your future. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you if he can simply distract you. A distracted believer is just as defeated as a discouraged one. That's why putting God first requires a constant fight for focus. You can't give God leftovers of your attention and expect first-rate peace. The mind is the soil of your faith, and whatever you plant there grows. If you spend all your time feeding your fears and scrolling your insecurities, your spirit will weaken. But if you fill your thoughts with His Word, His promises, His presence, your faith begins to rise again. Focus is spiritual warfare. Every time you redirect your mind from worry to worship, you're winning a battle you don't even see. Putting God first in your focus means being intentional about what you consume. You don't let everything and everyone speak into your spirit. You become a guardian of your atmosphere. You start asking, does this feed my faith or drain it? You stop letting negativity sit rent-free in your mind. You filter your thoughts through His truth. That's how you maintain spiritual clarity in a world built on distraction. God wants your first glance in the morning, not your last thought at night. The way you start your day sets the rhythm for everything else. When you wake up and give Him your first focus, even if it's just a few minutes of gratitude, worship, or prayer, you're declaring, Lord, you are my priority, not my problems. That single decision shifts your day from chaos to clarity. Because when your eyes are fixed on Him, your heart stops sinking under the weight of what's around you. Focus determines direction. Whatever you fix your eyes on, your life follows. If you focus on pain, you'll magnify it. If you focus on fear, you'll feed it. But if you focus on God, you'll strengthen your peace. That's why the Bible says, set your mind on things above. Setting means choosing. It means when your thoughts start drifting toward anxiety, you pull them back toward alignment. It's not automatic, it's active faith. Sometimes you'll have to refocus multiple times a day. You'll catch yourself worrying again, complaining again, or getting discouraged again. But that's part of the process. Spiritual focus isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Every time you refocus, you're strengthening your discipline. Every time you say, God, I choose you again, you're growing spiritually stronger. So guard your focus. Protect your peace. Put God first, not just in your actions, but in your attention, because the mind that is stayed on Him shall be kept in perfect peace. The world may fight for your focus, but only God deserves it, because only He can hold it steady. Gratitude is one of the purest forms of putting God first. It's the language of humility, the recognition that everything you have is a gift. Gratitude keeps your heart aligned with heaven. It turns what you have into enough and what you see into a miracle. When gratitude leaves, pride enters. But when gratitude stays, grace multiplies. You cannot be truly thankful and truly fearful at the same time. Gratitude pushes out fear like light pushes out darkness. Every morning you wake up, you have a choice, complain, or give thanks. One builds walls, the other opens doors. Gratitude doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you've learned to see the good in everything, even the painful parts. Because even pain has purpose. Even setbacks have strategy. God is working in ways that gratitude helps you see. A thankful heart sees blessings that a bitter heart is blind to. When you put God first, you stop taking things for granted. You stop living like you're owed something and start living like you're entrusted with something. You realize that breath is borrowed, time is temporary, and blessings are fragile. That realization changes your attitude toward life. You start saying, God, I may not have everything I want, but I thank you for everything I have. Gratitude becomes your worship, not just your words. Gratitude shifts atmospheres. It's impossible to stay heavy when you start thanking God intentionally. Try it. Start thanking Him in the middle of frustration, in the middle of waiting, in the middle of confusion. Something happens in your spirit when you shift your focus from what's missing to what's present. Gratitude reminds you that even when life feels uncertain, God is still faithful. A grateful person carries light. People can feel it when you enter a room. Gratitude changes your tone, your posture, your peace. It draws favor because it draws God. He inhabits the praises of His people, and gratitude is praise in disguise. That's why thankful people are strong, not because life is easy, but because they've chosen perspective over pity. Sometimes God allows lack to restore your gratitude. He'll let you miss what you once took for granted just to remind you of its value. Don't wait for loss to learn gratitude. Practice it while you have what you have. Gratitude in the little opens the door for greater. Gratitude when it's hard opens the door for healing. Gratitude when it's delayed opens the door for destiny. So make gratitude your rhythm. Thank Him when it's raining. Thank Him when it's shining. Thank Him when it's working, and thank Him when it's not. Because every season is sacred when God is first, and gratitude is the sound of a soul that still believes he's good. Worship isn't a song, it's a surrender. It's not about how loud you sing, but how low you bow. Worship is what happens when your heart says, God, you're still worthy, even when life isn't working. That's the weight of true worship, the kind that costs something. It's easy to worship when the miracle comes, but can you still lift your hands when you're in the middle of the storm? Can you still say, you're good, when nothing around you feels good? That's when worship becomes warfare. Worship realigns your heart when pain tries to twist it. It reminds you that God hasn't changed, even when circumstances have. When you worship, you're not ignoring your problems, you're placing them under His power. You're saying, God, you're greater than this. That's why worship is so powerful. It puts everything in its rightful place. You stop magnifying your issues and start magnifying your God. Putting God first means you don't wait for Sunday to worship. Worship becomes your lifestyle. It's the atmosphere you live in, not the event you attend. It's in how you talk to people, how you handle pressure, how you love others. Worship isn't just music, it's mindset. It's the posture of saying, Lord, you lead, and I'll follow. Every act of obedience is worship in motion. Sometimes God will let you go through seasons where all you have left is worship. No answers, no strength, no plan, just worship. And that's enough. Because worship invites His presence into your weakness. When words fail, worship speaks. When logic ends, worship begins. It's the sound of surrender that shakes heaven and breaks chains. Worship carries weight because it comes from wounds. The deeper the pain, the purer the praise. Some of your most powerful worship moments will come from your most painful seasons. Because worship is not about pretending you're fine. It's about declaring that He's still faithful. It's about saying, God, I don't understand it, but I still trust you. When you live a life of worship, worry loses its voice. You stop letting situations dictate your song. You realize that your worship isn't just a reaction, it's a weapon. Every time you lift your hands, you remind the enemy that he didn't win. Every time you worship through tears, you remind your soul that hope still lives. Worship is warfare disguised as devotion. So lift your voice, even if it trembles. Lift your heart, even if it's heavy. Worship God not because life is perfect, but because He is. That's what it means to put Him first, to make your praise louder than your pain, and your surrender stronger than your struggle. Putting God first every day is not an event. It's a lifestyle. It's not about perfection, it's about priority. It's not about feeling spiritual, it's about being intentional. It means that in everything you do, your work, your relationships, your dreams, your pain, God gets the first place. He's not part of your life. He is your life. It's a daily alignment that says, before I move, I'll seek you. Before I decide, I'll consult you. Before I speak, I'll honor you. The God first, life changes how you handle pressure. You stop panicking because you know your provider is still on the throne. You stop competing because you know your calling is secure. You stop chasing what you trust God to bring in His timing. It's a peaceful way to live. Not because everything is perfect, but because your priorities are protected. When God is first, everything else finds its order. Living this way doesn't mean you won't face storms. It means when the storm hits, your anchor holds. You'll still feel pain, but you'll also feel purpose. You'll still cry, but you'll cry with confidence. Because you know the same God who got you through the last season is already in the next one, making a way where there seems to be none. When you live the God first life, your goals change. You stop asking, how can I make this work? And start asking, how can this glorify God? Your success becomes service. Your promotion becomes purpose. Your platform becomes ministry. You realize that everything you do is a chance to reflect His goodness. You live with intentionality, not just activity. This lifestyle transforms how you see time. You stop wasting days chasing validation and start investing them in what matters eternally. You wake up with purpose and go to sleep with peace. You understand that every day is borrowed and every breath is a reminder of grace. When you live like that, anxiety loses its hold and peace becomes your rhythm. The God first, life isn't loud, it's consistent. It's not about shouting faith, it's about living it when nobody's watching. It's not just seen in church, it's seen in how you treat people, how you give, how you forgive, and how you endure. It's the quiet strength of a life anchored in divine order. It's the confidence that says, as long as God is first, everything else will fall into place. So every morning you wake up, start again. God, you first. Every decision, every moment, every challenge, let that be your declaration. Because a life with God first isn't just blessed, it's unshakable. And when your priorities are aligned with His presence, your destiny cannot be denied.